The 70s and 80s were a really wild time for B-movies, and no one knows how to produce a film as cheap as humanly possible like Roger Corman. After Jaws hit theaters in 1975 and became a huge hit, delving into some of man's most primordial fears, that being the ocean and whatever lurks beneath its surface, a whole slew of similar films featuring a variety of killer underwater creatures followed soon after. One of the biggest and most well-known of these is Piranha from 1978, produced by Roger Corman and directed by Joe Dante. Yes, that Joe Dante. Apparently, even Spielberg himself actually found the film quite enjoyable, and convinced Universal Pictures not to sue the production company due to the very apparent similarities between the two movies. The film would spawn a sequel, a remake in the mid-90s, and yet another remake/reboot many decades later. That, of course, being Piranha 3D, and its sequel, Piranha 3 Double D. But is this 70s creature feature worth your while as a viewer, or does it simply flop? Let's dive into Piranha and find out. The film opens up with a couple of hikers who stumble across a secret military base in the middle of the woods. The sign clearly says, "Keep out," so what do? That's right, they decide to go skinny dipping. But really, what's a 70s exploitation movie without a nice pair of boobs, and only 3 minutes into the movie? Now that's gotta be a record. One of the hikers sticks their hand into this huge pool and narrowly avoids getting their fingers munched off by the cameraman. Also, we get a cool little close-up of an eyeball opening up. Something starts nibbling at the guy's feet, and somehow he thinks it's Barbara here. I guess she has a habit of biting people's toes while underwater. Anyway, something attacks him from below as he thrashes about, filling the pool with blood, before he is pulled underwater. Shortly after, Barbara gets munched and pulled underwater as well. As the camera pans over, we see this little bungalow when all of a sudden a light turns on and a figure steps out into the light. Apparently I haven't heard the kid's screams. Then we get a pretty kick-ass title card. It really is a shame that a lot of movies nowadays don't do opening titles or credit sequences like this. Next, we meet Maggie, who has been hired to hopefully track down and find the missing kids. Also, nice little subtle joke here with the Jaws arcade game. Gotta love it. Eventually, she stumbles upon the house of one of the locals, Paul. At first, Paul comes off a little standoffish, but eventually, he does warm up to Maggie, and agrees to help her find the missing hikers.
Come on, let's go.
Go where?
You're taking me up there.
Oh no, I'm not.
Also, that fish looks really fucking good. Anyway, Paul apparently knows about the army base out in the woods, and after some convincing, enters the facility along with Maggie. They come across the pool that we saw in the film's opening. Maggie wants to drain the pool to see if there are any bodies. But first, they take a little tour of the rest of the facility, where they find a laboratory with some test tubes and other equipment, as well as whatever in the hell this thing's supposed to be. There's also a fish tank containing this creepy little thing, as well as several glass jars which contain the failed attempts to clone the perfect underwater death machine. And we even get to see the finished product, that being one of the piranha. Maggie goes to drain the pool outside, when all of a sudden they are attacked by this crazy old professor guy. Hey, it's Kevin McCarthy. You guys might remember him from my Ghoulies 3 video. Anyway, after a brief little scuffle, they're able to subdue the crazy scientist, and proceed to drain the pool the rest of the way. Also, they nearly crush this poor little guy while fighting. Aw, poor little thing. He's actually kinda cute. Paul points out after dipping his hand into the drained pool that it appeared to be filled with salt water, and they also stumble upon a sewer grate with the skeleton of what appears to be a dog in it. Unfortunately for Paul and Maggie, the scientist guy also wrecks their Jeep while attempting to flee in it. They bring him back to Paul's cabin to rest and get patched up, where we learn a few things about him. His name is Dr. Robert Hoke, and he's also an expert on fish and marine life, and has managed to breed the perfect army of killer fish, that being our piranha. But these aren't just any random piranhas, these are mutated fish that have been bred to be the perfect killing machine. Not only are they highly aggressive, but they can also withstand extreme temperatures, which is what allows them to withstand the cold temperatures of the mountain water. They also breed like crazy, and are resistant to just about any type of poison chemicals or pesticides. The three set sail in a makeshift raft in an attempt to try and contain the fish before they make their way into populated areas. We also learn that Dr. Hoke was a part of an operation created by the Army called Project Razor Teeth. One of Paul's neighbors and close friends gets his feet munched clean off of the bone by the deadly piranha. He manages to pull his feet out of the water, but it's too late, and he bleeds out. Kinda gives a whole new meaning to the term ankle biter, huh? So some more people get eaten, including this kid's dad. The kid manages to survive by balancing himself on top of the canoe after it flips over, and is spotted by our three characters. Dr. Hoke dives into the water and swims towards him in an attempt to save him, but the raft they were on was only a couple of feet from the upturned canoe, so why didn't he tell the other two to just paddle over to where the boy was? It wouldn't have taken very long at all, plus he'd still be alive after this. Anywho, he sacrifices himself to save the boy, but gets torn up pretty bad by the piranhas, and proceeds to bleed to death after being pulled out of the water. The blood from Doc's hand has been dripping blood into the water this entire time, which attracts the piranha, and they begin to eat away at the rope that is tying the raft together. They get rid of the body, but the fish continue to gnaw away at the raft until it completely falls apart. Thankfully, they're right by the shore and are able to swim the rest of the way to safety. Next, it's time for, yep, you guessed it, the military shows up along with scientist lady here. Apparently her and Dr. Hoke had a thing at one point, and she knows all about his experimentation and knowledge when it comes to the killer piranha. So Maggie and Paul are held captive by the military at the army base. Maggie flashes a guard, although judging from the cut here, this is likely a body double. The fish make their way over to the summer camp, where Paul's daughter also happens to be staying for the summer. Thankfully for her, she hates the water and absolutely refuses to go into the river, which sort of unintentionally ends up saving her. The piranha arrive, and let me just give a little trigger warning here before going any further. If you're somebody who finds kids getting killed in movies to be upsetting, you may want to skip over this part. Of course, I still have to be careful with what I can show here on YouTube, but let's just say it's pretty gnarly, as we see the killer fish nibbling on all these kids' fingers and toes. One even jumps clean out of the water and takes a chunk out of the coach's cheek. Paul's daughter manages to overcome her fear of the water and attempts to rescue as many as she can, but is unable to save one of the counselors who is overpowered by the piranha and eaten. Next, the fish move on to the resort, and looks like there's a whole buffet this time. Also, this happens. Man, what an asshole. That was so unnecessary. And if you guessed, this is the Jaws moment of the film, where there's some big celebration or festival about to happen, and the politicians and businessmen don't want to close the beaches, then give yourself a pat on the back.
Sir. Excuse me, I'm on a phone.
They're the piranhas.
I thought I told you not even to say that word.
But the piranhas.
What about the goddamn piranhas?
They're eating the guests, sir.
The piranha attack and eat several people at the resort, including the colonel here, who is head of this entire operation. And there's no shortage of blood and guts here as the guests get munched by the hungry fish. Paul comes up with a plan to pollute the fish to death by releasing toxic waste from the nearby army base. Unfortunately, they don't exactly have access to any scuba gear, so Paul must hold his breath during all this. Personally, I'd take my chances with the piranha before allowing myself to drown to death, but I digress. It doesn't take long for the piranha to find Paul, and they immediately start nibbling at his fingers. Maggie starts a boat and pulls Paul out by the rope he has tied around his waist. We get a bit of a jump scare here, where we see Paul's chewed up hand pop out of the water. But we do see him being wheeled into an ambulance on a stretcher, so at least we know he managed to live through the experience. He was able to successfully dump some toxic waste into the water, but it definitely wasn't enough. Scientist lady here explains over the news that there is no possibility of the piranha being able to reach the ocean, let alone survive in it. We then cut to the beach where we hear the piranha swarm and the water turns red with blood. signifying that the piranha have successfully made their way to the sea. But I guess we'll have to wait till part 2 to find out what that's all about. So, that was Piranha from 1978, a fun popcorn flick that is easily one of the better Jaws-inspired films of the 70s and 80s. Number 1 still goes to Alligator, at least in my opinion. Sorry, Joe Dante. But this one is definitely up there as well. If you're a fan of blood and boobs, then this is your kind of movie. There is no shortage of gore, severed limbs, and gratuitous nudity in this one, folks. The design of the piranha in the movie are pretty neat when you can actually see them. The film utilizes a lot of choppy editing during some of these attack sequences, making it rather hard to get a good look at the fish. Also, I didn't realize piranha could make sounds, but we hear this noise just about every time the piranha are on screen. I guess you could say it's this movie's equivalent of the Jaws theme that would play in that film anytime the shark was nearby. The piranha effects were achieved using a variety of practical effects, including prop fish, stop motion, and puppetry. Sure, some of the effects look dated, but for what this movie is, I think overall the effects look good enough. Acting is actually surprisingly good for this sort of movie, and I never got the sense that anybody was phoning it in. Overall, if you enjoy creature features, especially those that are of the killer animal type, I'd say give this one a go. It's well worth your time. As always, folks, don't forget to drop a comment down below, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, also consider subscribing. It would really help me out and would also allow me to bring more quality content to you guys. As we say here every day at the Movie Buffer, guys, ciao for now.